In recent years, the once dominant position of American wheat in the global market has been steadily declining. This decline is not just a matter of reduced export volumes. It also reflects the growing influence and competitiveness of other wheat-producing countries, as well as the changes in global trade dynamics. For decades, the United States was considered a leading wheat exporter, holding a significant share of the world market. However, this advantage has gradually faded, especially as countries like Russia, Canada, Australia, and even some European nations have increased production capacity and improved export efficiency. These competitors have been able to offer wheat at more competitive prices, often supported by favorable exchange rates and lower production costs. Another major factor is the change in global demand. Many importing countries are diversifying their sources, no longer relying heavily on U.S. wheat. In some cases, this shift is driven by political considerations, trade agreements, or simply the search for cheaper alternatives. The quality factor also plays a role. While U.S. wheat has traditionally been valued for its high quality, competing nations have made significant investments in technology and agricultural practices, narrowing the quality gap. This has weakened the unique advantage that American wheat once enjoyed. Domestic issues cannot be ignored either. Challenges such as rising production costs, unpredictable weather patterns, and domestic policy debates over subsidies and trade have all affected the competitiveness of U.S. wheat on the world stage. In short, the decline in American wheat's position is the result of a combination of external competition and internal challenges. If no strategic changes are made, the U.S. risks losing even more ground in a market it once dominated. The growing pressure on American wheat exports is a reflection of deeper shifts in the global agricultural landscape. It is no longer a game dominated by just a few traditional exporters. Instead, the market has become a competitive arena where multiple players are fighting for influence and market share. Russia is a prime example. Over the past decade, it has emerged as the world's largest wheat exporter, leveraging its vast farmlands, low production costs, and government-backed infrastructure improvements. This transformation has allowed Russia to capture markets in the Middle East, North Africa, and Asia, regions that were once heavily reliant on U.S. wheat. Australia, too, has strengthened its position. With its proximity to key Asian markets, it has been able to supply wheat quickly and efficiently, often bypassing logistical challenges that American exporters face. Australia's focus on meeting specific customer needs, such as providing wheat varieties suited for particular baking or noodle-making processes, has further cemented its role as a reliable supplier. Meanwhile, Canada has maintained a steady rise in its wheat exports by combining technological innovation with an emphasis on premium quality. Canadian wheat, particularly its high-protein varieties, is sought after in many markets. By ensuring consistent quality and dependable delivery schedules, Canada has been able to attract loyal buyers. In addition to these traditional competitors, other countries such as Ukraine and Kazakhstan have started to make their presence felt. They may not yet rival the largest exporters in scale, but their growth is significant enough to chip away at the U.S. share of global trade. Compounding these challenges is the growing trend of regional trade agreements that favor certain partners over others. When major importers sign deals with countries like Russia or Australia, it often leaves U.S. wheat facing higher tariffs or stricter import conditions. The cumulative effect is that U.S. wheat exporters now face a marketplace that is more crowded, more dynamic, and far less forgiving than in the past. Without a renewed strategy, the risk of further decline remains high. The decline in U.S. wheat exports is not only about international competition, it also reflects a series of domestic challenges that have been building for years. Farmers across the Midwest and Great Plains have been grappling with rising production costs, unpredictable weather patterns, and infrastructure bottlenecks that make it harder to get wheat to market efficiently. Extreme weather events driven by climate change have caused erratic yields in recent seasons. Extended droughts in key wheat-growing states like Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas have significantly reduced harvests, while sudden storms and floods have damaged crops and disrupted planting schedules. These weather swings have not only lowered total production, but have also made it more difficult for farmers to plan ahead with confidence. On top of this, the cost of inputs, such as fertilizers, fuel, and machinery, has been climbing. Global supply chain disruptions and geopolitical tensions have pushed fertilizer prices to record highs, squeezing profit margins for farmers. Many smaller producers are finding it increasingly difficult to break even, let alone invest in modernizing their operations. Transportation is another persistent headache. America's aging rail system and congested ports have led to delays and higher shipping costs. Competing exporters like Russia and Australia often benefit from shorter, more direct shipping routes to their primary buyers, allowing them to offer better delivery times at lower costs. Domestic policy decisions have also played a role. Shifts in subsidies, trade priorities, and agricultural programs have at times left wheat farmers feeling overlooked compared to producers of other major crops like corn and soybeans. Without consistent support, U.S. wheat struggles to remain competitive in a market where price and reliability are everything. All of these factors combine to weaken the U.S. position on the global stage. Even loyal buyers are beginning to diversify their suppliers, not out of preference but out of necessity. For American wheat to reclaim its former strength, these internal issues will have to be addressed alongside any international strategy. The global wheat market has shifted dramatically over the last decade, and the United States is no longer the unchallenged leader it once was. Countries that were once seen as minor players, such as Russia, Ukraine, and Australia, have now become powerhouses in wheat exports, leveraging their geographical advantages, modern agricultural technology, and aggressive trade strategies. Russia, in particular, has surged ahead, capitalizing on vast arable land, relatively low production costs, and a favorable climate for large-scale wheat farming. The Russian government has invested heavily in modernizing port facilities and expanding export capacity, enabling faster shipments to major buyers in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. The result is a consistent presence in markets where the U.S. used to dominate. Ukraine, despite the ongoing war, has remained a significant competitor, thanks to its fertile soil and strategic location near key maritime routes. Even with logistical challenges caused by conflict, Ukraine's wheat continues to find its way to global markets, sometimes with assistance from international agreements aimed at keeping food supplies stable. Australia has also expanded its reach, benefiting from proximity to the growing Asian demand and a reputation for high-quality wheat. The country's exporters have been able to move quickly, adapting their sales strategies to meet the needs of rapidly developing economies like Indonesia, Vietnam, and China. This shift in the competitive landscape means that U.S. wheat is no longer the default choice for many international buyers. Price sensitivity is high, and with other suppliers offering comparable quality at lower costs and with shorter delivery times, the U.S. faces an uphill battle. Trade relationships have also evolved. Nations are signing bilateral agreements that secure long-term wheat supplies, often bypassing the traditional reliance on American exports. These deals, combined with the rise of regional trade blocs, have further eroded the U.S. market share. In short, the wheat trade is now a fiercely contested arena where efficiency, cost, and reliability matter more than historical dominance. Without adapting to these new realities, the U.S. risks becoming a secondary player in a market it once led with ease. The shifting dynamics of global trade are not just a story of numbers and market share. They reflect a deeper transformation in how power, influence, and economic security are defined in the 21st century. For decades, the United States relied on its agricultural dominance not only as a source of revenue but as a geopolitical tool. Wheat, corn, and soybeans were more than commodities. They were levers of influence, shaping alliances and opening doors for broader economic and political agreements. But the erosion of that dominance means the U.S. is losing one of its quiet but effective instruments of power. Meanwhile, emerging exporters like Russia, Australia, and even parts of South America are not just competing on price and efficiency, they are actively embedding their agricultural trade into broader strategic partnerships. For example, Russia has used wheat exports as part of its diplomatic outreach to nations in Africa and the Middle East, offering food security in exchange for political alignment or favorable trade terms. This blending of commerce and diplomacy is something the U.S. used to do exceptionally well. But in recent years, internal political divisions, trade disputes, and a lack of long-term planning have weakened its position. Instead of shaping the market, America now finds itself reacting to moves made by others. There's also the reality of climate change, an unpredictable factor that is already altering the geography of agriculture. Prolonged droughts, shifting rainfall patterns, and extreme weather events are forcing farmers worldwide to adapt. Some regions are benefiting from these changes, expanding their growing seasons and yields, while others are facing reduced production capacity. In this environment, adaptability is everything. Countries that can rapidly adjust their farming methods, logistics, and trade policies will lead. Those that cannot will fall behind. And right now, the U.S. is at risk of being in the latter category. The challenge ahead is not simply about producing more wheat, it's about rethinking the entire approach to agricultural trade, from investment in infrastructure to the cultivation of diplomatic relationships. Without such a shift, the steady decline in U.S. influence over global food markets could become permanent, reshaping the geopolitical map in ways few Americans have yet to fully grasp.